Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. We have a piece of glossy cardstock, which I've accidentally splattered because I was re-inking one of my pads. No big deal, but glossy cardstock, which is not the same thing as glossy photo paper. Cardstock has a different type of surface on here, and it's the type that printers use for printing things like posters, book covers, and things like business cards. So very traditional paper in the crafting industry. They've come to think of this as like something kind of out of the normal, but it's what everyone was stamping on, kind of late 80s, early 90s, especially with degrading from Posh Impressions, kind of really promoting the combination of things like Marvy markers and glossy cardstock. It was mostly Chrome Coat back then, but there's different brands out there these days. But Chrome Coat's still around. Should you want to find something like this, you'll find it also. Hamilco and I don't know, different brands are out there, but glossy cardstock, okay, if you're going to be doing this type of process here. Okay, so I'm going to be using, I'm not going to be using my Marvy Marvy ink pens, but I'll use my Marvy Matchables, but you can use any brand of dye-based inks, okay, which are different from alcohol inks and solvent inks and pigment inks, okay. So you can use different brands and just use whatever you want in terms of a brand. And one of the things that I used to do, let me see, let me bring up the chat window. Can anyone post something in the chat window? I think I closed it off. I want to see that if that naturally just pops up here. But anyways, you can use different brands, okay? But if you're going with a different brand, just stay consistent again with the ink type. Okay. All right. So one of the things I used to show in my first class was just when you're deciding on inks and colors, what you do is you just put together a little swatch like this, at least in this format, because we're going to be adding in these colors down and okay, let me see it. Let me find my chat window. I hear people posting here. Let's see. Where is it? Where's my view option here? Camera. Sorry for the delay here. Oh, window. Here we go. Let's see. Comments and reactions. There we go. Hello, Debbie, Candy, Cynthia, and Linda. Good to see you all. Okay. Yeah, glossy cardstock, Linda. Not even the semi-gloss. I was talking to Linda, I don't know, something before, and we were talking about how we're using a lot of semi-gloss these days. Okay, but you just lay things out, okay? I always said laying things out and making it visual is always better, because when you can lay things out, you can just know the transition of colors and also the process in which we're going to be adding these. So with transparent colors, what my technique is to go from light colors to dark colors, okay? And to try not to jump between something too extreme if you don't have to, okay? So this is going from kind of a lighter blue, this one's a Caribbean blue, to like a Prussian blue like that. That's a big jump in value. So if you have these kind of intermediate colors like that, add those in, okay? Don't add in a pigment ink or something like that, or a solvent ink like a StazOn in there if you're doing this type of process here. But you can always just kind of make things visual. If you don't know which color goes before the other one, just try to imagine which one looks lighter and which one looks darker, okay? So again, like here's a Memento Bahama blue. Let's say I didn't have the Marvy light blue, and if we have something like this this would be absolutely fine right here, okay? You just add in that intermediate ink. Now, like I said, you don't have to do that. You can make a jump from something light to darker, but in this transitioning type of ink addition method, it's just better to have those intermediate colors in there because it makes those transitions a little bit easier. My ink here is a little bit wet still. Like I said, it's not going to matter though because this is going to get really saturated with ink here. Hello, Laura. Okay. Hello, Patty. Okay, so I'm going to do something. We're going big here because I just haven't done one of these in a while, and I thought, let's just go big on this one. I'm going to use a couple of the art foamies in a slightly different, or tweak on a composition that I've done quite a bit before. And I'm going to use a lot of the Lakeside Cove types of imagery. Lakeside Reflections large, and I have Lakeside Cove, the smaller one right here. We'll try to create some deep space in here. That's why I'm going big on here too. And it's just because, I haven't done this for a while, so I just wanted to lay down a pretty big slathering of ink here. Hello, Jeannie. And I don't know, let's not, just do something that I've done exactly before. So I haven't used the foamies in this particular composition before, using these kind of bluer, cool tones, and I thought I would use some maybe some Dr. Martens on here as well. Okay, so here's the thing. This is what I used to do with my classes. In my beginning class that I taught for years and years, what we did was, a lot of it was kind of how to lay down some inks, as much as it was how to use landscape imagery in particular. So I'd have them pick out, everyone had a bunch of stamps in front of them, okay? I didn't have them say, okay, you're going to pick up Lakeside Cove, and then you're going to color that with blue ink or something like that. I didn't do it like that. But I just kind of talked to them about the basics on kind of your central kind of main focal point in a scene. Often it was a bigger stamp, but it doesn't have to be. And I would have them pick out some kind of subject matter, okay? So if it's a lake, they're going to do a lake. If it's, a cabin, that's probably going to be the focal point because we're working on quarter-page pieces. Watermill, then it would be about a watermill, okay? And then I would have them pick out some kind of sky figure, okay? There were suns and lightning bolts and clouds and moons of different types in front of them. So they would just pick out 2 stamps, okay? And then I would have them stamp out their subject matter stamp in black ink and their sky figure in a color out of the color scheme that they were going to be using. Now, I did have everyone start off with the blue colored scheme, just to make things easier on their first card, but they knew how to lay things out, so if I said, all right, maybe on your next card, do like a sunset scene or something like that. So they would line up their pads, light to dark like that, I don't know. If you can't tell which one's lighter than the other one, then it's close enough and it doesn't matter which, order you have them in. But, just in general, it would go with a swatch or something like that, okay? That's what was good for, about the Marvy pads, too. Everyone had 24 pads in front of them. So it covered, like, all of the different, the entire spectrum of colors. So, in varying values, too, light to dark, okay? So, it was really easy after that. They can get the feel of adding those colors down. And their sky figures were often the thing that were setting the tone for what colors were in the scene. If it's a sun up there and they wanted a sunset, then they would stamp out their sky figure in one of those colors. Okay, so my moon here, I'm going to stamp it out. Let's go fairly dark with this one. Let's go with the Prussian blue. I'm saying that because that's my slightly lighter blue than Prussian is depressed. My foam on that one's, just totally collapsed. It's good for inking up like a, whatever applicator I'm using, but I can't use it to ink up a stamp anymore because it's like recessed. I still use it though. Okay, so Prussian blue on this cloud with the rising moon large foamy. I just wanted to go for something really big. I wanted some huge, you know, orb in the sky. I'm going to kind of blot this out around the edge to, it might stamp out a little bit lighter. I don't know on the foamies though. I'm used to wiping off a certain amount off rubber that's non-absorbent. So on this one right here, I don't know if I'm wiping off, too much or not enough because it's absorbed into the, the foam here. So when I stamp it out, it might be just as dark as it would have been had I not wiped it off. But anyways, I mean, that's not going to make a difference here though. I just wanted this to kind of transition off a little bit more. Usually with my sky figures, I do that. I think I hold my impressions down with the art foamies a little bit longer than I need to because these things are absorbent, so they hold a lot more ink than rubber, because rubber, it's all surface. And with the foamies, it absorbs in there a little bit more. Okay, so we have that right there. I don't think I needed to wipe off around the edge on this one. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, a lot of times people ask me, do you stamp out your backgrounds first, or did you stamp out your your entire composition and then add the color? Okay, so not necessarily backgrounds, but what I meant is, do you lay down the colors first, or do you do your composition and then color it in? In this composition right here, it doesn't really matter because most of the imagery is going to be fairly silhouette based. So you can stamp it down and then color it in, or you can do your background entirely, resolved in terms of your color scheme and your lighting scheme, and then just stamp this in after the fact, and it's going to be fine because there's open areas on these stamps right here, like in these rocks, but it's not so open that, if there's a transition of light and dark going through here, that's going to show up in those rock areas. It's not really going to matter. Okay, so that being said though, if I stamp this out right now in my black ink, I'm gonna have to wait for it to dry a little bit. So I'm gonna get this established right here, lay in all my colors, and I'm gonna stamp my imagery in after, okay? Okay, so this one's gonna be a ton of ink here, and I wasn't quite sure if I had a salvia blue or a really light blue dye-based ink. Okay, I do have this London fog here, which is gray, so I thought I would go with that. Okay, so I'm adding this into this mix right here. Okay, this is a Memento, just re-inker. Okay, now on a big scene like this, where we're doing a lot of ink like this, I recommend just going with a re-inker on whatever your ink applicator of choice would do. I'm just going to use a paper towel here. I find that paper towels or sponges or something like that work really well because they're very absorbent. So if they're absorbing a lot of liquid like that, you have a lot of ink or liquid to transfer, right? There's a lot of types of applicators that are out there these days that are kind of the opposite of what the entire concept of transferring liquid media would be, because they're synthetics. So I don't know, they might work in certain types of applications, but if you want a lot of ink transferred, what you have to have is something that's fairly absorbent so that it's the liquid is in there to begin with. Otherwise, if it's wicking moisture out of it, like repelling it, like a lot of synthetics would, it's really going to take a long time to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do, this is going to be a moon, and we're going to have some moonlight over the water. Okay, so it's going to go from darker out here, to lighter in here, okay? So the darker mark is going to be on the outside, so that's where I want to start with something like this, okay? Now this is going to go really fast again because, I have this big applicator. You can do like this if you want to. I like to go from a darker to lighter like this though. So I start off on the outside edge so that when I do the streak like this, I'm kind of letting up with my pressure here too. So it's kind of surface. And then as I'm going up like that, it's like this, okay? All right, so it's not like this, directly and then up. It's kind of like wiping it. So it's like you're sweeping, like with a whisk broom, not like a, one of those straight ones, but and then you're just going like this. Now I do it in a direction that's going to be really conducive for that mark. So if I'm doing a lot of repeated marks like this isn't easy on my hand or arm because it's angled weird, you know? So this is the way my hands naturally go. So I just angle this in the direction of that. And then I'll kind of move my paper a little bit more. I'll go a little bit, you know, like this, but this is like, it's like within your, they call it your range of effectiveness, I think, in certain things like ergonomics. All right. But I mean, this is a lot of application right here, and that's just with one inking, and that didn't take too long, so that's what I always recommend for people. I didn't do that all the time, but then I think it's when the Marvy Matchables came out, and then they came out with the re-inkers. Let me see, it wasn't even that. It was when the Ranger line of seashells came out, those shadow stamping inks. That's when I thought, you know, why are we spending so much time with our applicator and applying that? Let's just use a re-inker on, at that time it was this Colorbox Stylus tools. And it was like, oops. I just went with my Caribbean blue here. All right, let's just use that because I'm going to be using the Caribbean blue anyway. Don't do that. It's going to get darker in here anyway, so let me just use that. Okay, yeah. But the Colorbox Stylus tools and the Ranger Seashells Shadow Stamping Inks. I almost couldn't think of it because they changed the name later on to Adirondack Lights. Okay. They were the exact same colors, but they just changed the naming convention because Adirondacks were like super popular at the time. And this is the seashells and sea brights weren't selling for them. Christmas red. Yeah. It's like getting colder, so it's like I need to pull out that I forgot they call this material Omni Heat. Okay, that looks kind of sloppy, I know, but we have like all of these colors to go through right here. Now you don't add on, like I'm adding in a lot of this, like this wasn't supposed to be the first color here, but I'm adding on a lot of this base coat. And what that does is kind of saturates this paper, and it makes it easier to apply my darker tones in a much smoother manner. It's kind of like, you know, people that, you know, where you're using those like Copic markers, you know, you kind of saturate the surface, and you work through all those different colors to get to, you know, a certain point where they're kind of like blending really easily. It's because the paper is kind of achieved like super saturation, and you're dealing with a lot more of the ink on the surface of it. You know, right now, all of this ink is going to get absorbed into the pulp of the paper, okay? Or a lot of it is. A lot of it, you know, it's going to be more surface oriented than using a matte piece of paper. But, you know, you have to get that kind of that saturation, or at least a decent amount of saturation for kind of the ease of blending to occur on the surface here. Okay. Okay, so this isn't going to be as dark on this side right here again, because I use this, I don't know, I think I pulled this out because I didn't know if my Caribbean blue here was inked up enough. This is where you're going to get a lot of, kind of, if you're doing like a really big scene, you get a lot of like inky fingers. Not on this hand right here, but it's on this hand because I'm holding this all the time. The Chrome Coat Glossy went with it. Well, I think for me, the color box stylus tool. I mean, I used these paper towels for like I don't know a couple years after the stylus tools were gone, and I used you know glossy cardstock years before. I kind of discovered I don't know those foam tipped stylus tools, but for me, it was the discovery not of, it wasn't the absence of color box stylus tools, but it was the rediscovery of Brilliance inks, okay? And the Brilliance ink really opened up just a ton of different surfaces. And it was like surfaces that I already had in all of my supplies. So I was able to dip into like my things like the Stardream papers, and then also some of the foils that I started experimenting on. It's like, oh my god, we can stamp on metallics and holographics and all those different types of wild types of surfaces, traditionally wild ones. Nowadays it's like I'm using them all the time, and like holographic for me is almost like certain holographics almost seem like tame now with some of the wilder holographics. Okay, so I'm going with the this number 10 light blue now. Okay, so so see this right here, it's just a little bit lighter. Okay, now if I do this on just a dry piece of paper, right, this is like dead set, right? But here's the thing about glossy though, after you've laid down that first coating like this, watch this right here. If I go like this and use the worst technique and just punch it down like this, it just blends out absolutely fine, again, because I've already kind of saturated this paper a little bit. This is absorbent paper. This is not a non-porous paper right here, okay? But we've saturated, not super saturated because it's still absorbing into this paper, but it just makes this blending process so easy to do. And this is what they do. This is the paper that's used for posters and book covers and things like that in the whatever 4 or 5 color, 3 color press types of printing methods, to get that deep saturation and kind of attention getting intensity, looking at something from a distance, like book covers and things like that. They really want that attention getting type of intensity from far away, so that gives you the most impact. So glossy cardstock if you want impact, and if you like color and saturation, this is just the way to go. Now there's holographics too, which are metallics, but I'm just talking about just in regular colors. Okay, this is where it starts kind of, generally starting to smooth things out a little bit too. Down here I got really kind of choppy, but now I'm going in with this and you can kind of see, it's getting a little bit smoother in here. I can smooth it out. So you don't have to worry about those first like couple colors that you lay down, or especially the first color when you're doing this. Now, I've really pointed out this is glossy cardstock, not glossy photo paper. Sometimes people dip into their photo paper and they're going with this, and it's like, oh my god, he made it look so easy. Well, glossy photo paper and glossy cardstock, in terms of this type of application method here, are almost the polar opposite of one another in the way they would take this ink. If you tried to do this on photo paper, in this technique, right, you can do other techniques on photo paper. It's a completely different experience. I would go like, it's almost like putting it down on a piece of matte paper like this, where if you did something like that, it is dry like instantly, okay? Not with glossy cardstock. All right, let's see. If anyone asks me a question, sorry, I've been inking here. Let's see. Yeah, they have not too many of the sky images in the foam, or maybe they don't have that sky image in the foamies. Linda, she sent me out kind of this these test ones. Maybe that one's not on there. Yeah. Candy. That's what I was mentioning to people. Candy, what foam do you use? It's crafter's foam, right? Hey, Danny. How's it going, Rock? There's my classmate from Cabrillo. Shout out to Danny. Let's see. Hello, Froggy Fresh. Hello, Jen. Hey, hello, Teresa. Okay, let's see here. All right, so I'm adding a lot of this down here like this. All right. And I'm not just, here's the thing about this type of coverage right here. You're not just kind of coloring evenly. With each kind of tone, you're kind of laying it down and kind of saturating, okay? Because this is kind of drying too. Now, this is going to be, you have to use a lot more of that first one or two colors if you're in Arizona. Yeah, Laura's here. This is going to be hard for Laura, who's in the house here, out in Arizona, okay? Doing like a large scene like this. Because it's getting drier, everything's like drying. I don't even know if it's twice as fast. It might be like 3 times as fast, in many times of year, probably, okay? So what they would do is they would use more, if you're doing something large like this, if you're working on a quarter page card, it's not any big deal because you're getting to your other colors, your incrementally darker colors much faster. But I would use more of your base coat, okay? And something like a distress ink or something like that. The Ranger inks or the Mementos. The Mementos are really thick too. You lay those down and then you go on with your other colors, okay? But then what you do is you might go back to your lighter color after you get midway through your color scheme, okay? And the reason why is you want to get that kind of your surface moistened again with that lighter color. Now going with light over the dark, it's not going to make the scenario lighter, okay? You're just kind of lubricating it and moistening up again for the darker colors to come, okay? Okay, so that being said, I'm going to go back to this Caribbean blue right here. I'm going to, instead of using this pad here, it's just going to be a lot faster if I just go right into, I'll use the re-inker again on there, okay? I haven't done this for a while, folks, so some of this is like, and I don't usually do like large scenes like this in this process here. It's like coming back to me, like little points like this. Just use the re-inker even in the darker tones, okay? Okay, so here we go, like this. Now I'm leaving a little bit of that lighting right here on my water surface, and that'll look like reflected light from the moon. Now that it's just too stark white for me right now, okay? So I'm going to mute that out later, or I might give it a slight warmth, going back into it with like a tan color or something like that, or I might use an alcohol ink or something like that. Yeah, moon stamp right here. So maybe you're right, Linda. Maybe we didn't release this one right here. I think it was because it was too tonal or something like that. There were too many dots in there, which works in some areas, but we needed more solids, I think it was. So anyway, yeah, so this is the Cloud with Rising Moon non-existent stamp. Okay, so that Caribbean blue is, these two colors right here, it doesn't look like it. It looks like this one's a lot lighter. Or I don't know, at least like a 10-15% lighter version. But they're roughly the same, but this one has a little bit of warmth to it, with a little bit of greenish tinge. So you can see it right throughout here. It looks like I used a pale green in there, but it's not. It's just a lighter version of this where I've kind of dragged it in like that, and it's just that lighter tinge in there. Okay, so a little thing here, side thing, is that when you're doing these kind of monochromatics like this, if you're just working just straight through blues or something like that, if you add in an analogous color, that's a color that's right next to, another color, like on the, in this case, the color wheel, what that does, it creates a color glow. Okay, so, sunset colors or something like that, your reds or something like that, you add an orange and then the orange to yellow, that creates a color glow. Okay. So that's what I kind of did right here. And it also added a little bit of temperature to it. Instead of just this cool blue tone scene, now you have cool, it's cool and warm. It's just a slight warmth to it. Okay, so we've extended the temperature range out by doing so. Okay, so that's my little tip for you. If you're doing like a green area or something like that, and if it's in grass, then you add a little bit of like a lighter green, yellow green or something like that, and it makes that color glow a little bit more by adding in that analogous color next to it. Or in a green area, like a neutral green, like a Christmas green, that's more of like a neutral green. It's kind of temperature-less. So if you add a little bit of blue to it, then you have a little bit of, cool toned area, and then you can add in a little bit of warmth to it. So you can kind of go both ways on the color wheel. You're going into the, cooler greens, and then you can go into the warmer greens. And it's not just for temperature, it creates that glow. So it makes, when you look at something, it's like, oh my God, that color really stands out for some reason. And that's often what it is. It's that tweak with analogous colors, okay, creating that illusion of color glows. Now, if you go opposite, it creates a color vibration, which is the complementary colors. I don't really do that, though, in my applications. I'm usually just blending stuff together. Okay, so this is the darker blue. You can see it where it's really coming together, okay? And it's starting to blend it in a little bit more. Or it's blending in, but it's also kind of creating this lighting scheme in here. Okay. And remember what I said, that first, looking at that first color, it's, oh my God, this is going to take forever. Well, with the darker colors, you don't go in quite as far. So you get this transition going from light to dark. It's because we're going from wet to dry like this, okay, with our applications. But it's also because when you get to these darker tones, you don't bring them in quite as far, as you did. So you just do less and less coloring, okay? Now, if this gets really kind of, like you're getting like these bad kind of marks or something like, look kind of choppy like that. Again, if you get that on there, just go back to your lighter one and add more tone down here like that and get it moistened, and then go to your darker one and come in here, okay? Where people kind of go off the rails sometimes is if they see a finished piece like this and they think, okay, that's like that color blue like that. So they rush through the lighter tones to get to this one. And then it looks more like, like something like, it's like this. It looks really anemic, okay? So this is just straight blue. So you can see the benefit of these other tones underneath that, I mean, it's a nice colored blue, but it doesn't glow, and it isn't as deep as layered on top of those other colors like that, okay? And that's the same thing for every color scheme. It's not just blues. And plus it's easier too, because this is kind of, the page is kind of, it's moistened a little bit. Now, it's not moist to the touch like this. I'm not gonna, wipe off any ink that's been applied on there. It's just kind of, the pulp of the paper is a little bit damp, okay? Has any of you ever, opalite ink pads, never heard of them? Or have I? Is that a Tsukaneko pad? Because I want to say that I've seen those pads before. I'm not sure. now that you mention it. Is it like some kind of scripty kind of opalite on the pad? Yeah, the name of it. Okay, now right around here, I just need to be careful that I'm not going into my moon, okay? Teresa, wait, do you have those then? Okay. Now, you see, I want to make this a little bit streaky too because it's kind of conducive to that water look. You know, so I'm doing these like streaks in here, and then I'm going with this isolated streak across there. I'm not doing it in one pass though. See, I stay in this one area like this. Oh, and here's a technique thing too, not just for large scenes like this, but a lot of times people want to do this type of thing. They're adding in the ink like this. Okay, they want to get that full, you know, area like this, okay? I don't do that. I stay in this one application like this, okay? So it looks more like this right here, okay? So I'm staying there. And then how I'm spreading this out like this. So it's predominantly this center type of motion like this, but then I take my lighter tone like this and see how I spread it out like that, okay? So it transitions like from lighter, you know, medium darker, medium lighter like that. So that's what you see right in all these areas like that, okay? And that gives me a smoother application, I feel. Because I'm just working that one transition. I'm not doing this right here, okay? That would look really choppy because I'd be applying it on like a drier piece of paper, like that. I think she was asking anyone, Cynthia. But yeah, if anyone asks me a question and someone else knows too on here, a lot of people, you guys know a lot more about a lot of things than I do, you know, in terms of media and stuff like this. So yeah, definitely, you know, answer. Okay, so there we go like that. That's, you know, I'm looking at this right here too. And to me, it's reasonably rich, okay? But I want my saturations more intense than this right here. Let me take a look. Let me see. I already went with the let me try to use a little bit more Caribbean. Okay, I'm just using the same paper towel here, by the way, too. I switch up with the paper towel when it gets like shredded. Okay, this is going back to the Caribbean. Now it's mixed with all these other colors, okay, but I think I can get more intensity here. Let me see if we can. I think that looks a little bit brighter. The Ranger London Fog, the Ranger inks for me kind of tend to dull things out a little bit. But after I spray seal, it'll look really nice and bright. Okay, but anyways, let me see. That was the Prussian blue that I stamped that out in, right? Let's go to that one here. All right. And now my application of the Prussian blue isn't going to look as dark as that immediately because I have all of this saturated right here. That was on a dry piece of paper, right? So it really absorbed and it stained the surface, which is the way dye-based inks work. Okay. And with this super saturation now, it's that staining and absorption goes slower. Okay. So that being said, see that right there? See, watch this. I'll show you how, slow the absorption process is. I really added that down like that hard, right? But see how easily it blends out like that? Okay. I'll go more extreme. I'll just work it down like that. See that right there? And see how easily it blends out like that? Now, don't do that. Don't do that, squashing technique right here. But, it would be as if I did it on there like that, and then that, doesn't spread out as easily, right? But you can see the benefit of laying down all those colors in terms of application ease now and blending right there, okay? So you get the benefit of deeper saturations and ease of application of this, okay? By just taking your time through the preliminary colors. Die Hard. We were talking about that the other day as far as our Christmas movies. I don't think we've watched that during Christmas though, because there's so many other ones. But yeah. Santa Claus is Coming to Town. We haven't watched that one yet. What we were talking about it though, in terms of the kids and the mean I don't know, whatever, the kids without toys storyline scenario. What did we just watch? We just watched the Charlie Brown Christmas. And then there was two Charlie Brown Christmas. I tend to forget about that other one. It's like I want a, what was it? I can't remember. And I watched a lot of the Christmas carols, all those different versions of them. Fun times, though, this time of year. Interference Dye Pigment Cloud 9. The Lisa Hort. What is interference pigment? I've heard that before. I don't hear about those too often. They're one color on white paper. Oh, and another on dark papers. Is it one version of a given hue, like it's a certain green looking on white, and then it's like on a dark it's like greenish or something like that? Oh, the shop towels. That's a great idea, Linda. I think like rags would be perfect for this. One of the most I've thought some of the most ideal applicators would be like an old cotton shirt or something like that. Okay, so this is the darkest of my color application scheme right here. Okay, if you just joined in, I was kind of working through this type of color scheme right here. This looks like a black pad right here, but it's Prussian blue. It's really dark blue. It's the blue that I stamped out that moon in. Okay, so I've added these down here, and those are underneath all these other colors, plus the addition of London Fog, just because I didn't have a really light blue re-inker. I didn't bother checking for it, but okay, so I can't add down very much more tone going like this because I'm wiping off color practically at this point in time because it's really built up. So what you do is you just kind of build up your beads of ink like this, and you can see I can build up a darker tone by tapping it like this instead now, okay? It can be a combination of both. Sometimes you're tapping like this and building up a little bit of a puddle of ink, and then you can kind of spread it out like this too. Or you can do your swirly types of applications. But if I do that at this point in time, I think I'm going to interfere with some of these streaks on here. So I'm just going to tap around on the edge to really get a nice kind of strong vignette going on here. And then plus I want to finish off this whole kind of vignette around here with black ink too. I might add the black though. I think I'm going to do the black after I stamp my imagery. The reason being for the black and doing it after I stamp my imagery, I'm thinking because that's going to be the strongest color, so I want to get my stamps positioned, and I'll use my black to add in kind of shadow areas. So I want to know where I'm going to stamp out my imagery first, so I can kind of target those shadowed areas. Oh, yeah. We were talking about holographic inks, right? Or holographic. I think we were talking about holographic embossing powders too. Someone it might have been one of you guys that said that you tried the holographic embossing powder. I thought someone said that the one that they had didn't. It just looked like regular white, or was that something else that was mentioned? Or it looked like just standard black or something like that, or whatever color. I thought it was like white, someone said. Or they couldn't tell the difference, at least with that one brand or something like that. All right, so there we go here. Okay. Now see, with all these streaky types of applications, if I did that over the top of, stamped out imagery, it would probably smear my imagery a little bit. But with the black that I'm going to be applying, it's going to be more on this kind of tapping motion. So I'm not going to be like streaking across, some image on here that's been, printed. So, so I'll do that application of black afterwards. I'll use some more of this blue too. Okay, so this is the other thing that I used to do in my workshops. Not on a 8.5 by 11, but quarter page, but we would do things where we would utilize our value scheme to represent depth. Okay, so I mean, naturally, this represents light and dark, okay? But this, pulling out these pads like this, we can use this strategically to push depth in a scene, okay? So what this also can represent is, this is far, and this is near, like this. We can add in black here too, okay? So that's why oftentimes my foreground imagery is stamped in black or something like that, and there might be other imagery as it goes back into the distance, and it gets, progressively lighter, okay? Now I'm looking at this right here. I can't go too light with this one because, I stamped out my moon in a fairly dark blue, so I can't go with a light blue or something like this, or any of these ones for this imagery in the background like that, okay? So it's going to have to be as dark or darker than that, okay? So let's grab this right here. So I'm not going to be using too much. Okay, I should have probably stamped out that moon on a little bit of a lighter tone so I can do more of that. But okay, so this is what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to retain black for my closest of imagery right here. And then I'll go with that Prussian blue right here to represent kind of that intermediate depth in here and distance, okay? I guess in some ways you can go dark, light, dark like that, too. You're kind of oscillating your lighting, whatever strategy. I haven't really done that before though, but I guess you could. Just as long as there's some kind of transitioning value, changes that are happening from close to far. All right, so, all right. Let's see here. Suddenly this pad seems really dry. Let's see. Is it dry here? I moved around my demo things when I went to Arizona for that. Okay, no wonder. That doesn't look that dark. Everyone go grab a drink or something. I need to find my Prussian blue. Here, I don't want to spend time looking for that. Here, I'm going to make my own version of some darker tone. Okay. Let's go with, now I'm making sure this is black and not bottle green here. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of blue or black on this, and then I'm going to add some of this Prussian blue. Yeah, it's polluting my pad a little bit, but it's fairly dry, so I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, let's go about right here. Okay, and then I'm going to add in some of this around on the outside edge like this. Okay. I'll go a little bit darker on this one, so I'm tapping on a little bit more black, because this one's like right underneath my moon, so I'm going to put it in this, that moonlight, so it's being a little bit more illuminated. Let's blow off a little bit of this. Okay. All right. Overlap your imagery. I should be probably holding this down a little bit longer because, again, this is kind of moist out there, so that transferring of ink to stain the surface is slower. But I don't, if these come out a little bit lighter, that'll just, that push that illusion of depth a little bit. See, I held it down longer, so that one's stamped out darker. All right. Let me just go with black on this one. This one's going to be out on the side where it's going to be darker anyway. Okay. All right. So we have those images like this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with my larger imagery here. So it'll be like this little, whatever, aisle inlet or something like that. Puget Sound, whatever. And let's go like this. I also have, do I want to vary it? I might not use that one. I'm going to go with this, I think. And then I'll have this one down here a little bit. All right. That ink is really dry. All right. Let's go on to the light. I'm looking at my other pads here. I have a bunch of my re-inkers here. I'm going to re-ink. I'm going to get kind of a lighter impression, maybe. That looks pretty dark. I'll re-ink to get the strongest impressions down here, so it's really dark. Okay. Lakeside reflections large, make sure you get enough pressure right in this center area. Because there's this is one of my stamps that has the most surface area of all the different images. Okay, and ink up this opposite side right here. And I don't want to come in like this because it's too symmetrical, so add it a little bit higher or lower, and then maybe add it in more or less, just so it doesn't look so uniform from one side to the next. Especially, you know, with this kind of center centered kind of structuring of the moon up there, the focal point, and this water area down here. You want to create kind of like a little serpentine type of area to give visual movement rather than just a straight line like that. It creates a little bit more of an interesting path, you know, with the way people look at visuals. You know, they usually enter in from somewhere, and you kind of take them on a little bit of a journey, on a little bit of a, you know, visual path when they're looking at something. Okay. I can use something out here too. Maybe I will use a little bit of that Lakeside Cove right here. Like something like this. I'll take a look. I'll see how dark it gets in there with the use of some shadow work. All right. Now let's see. I wanted to go with this one, with this art foamy right here. Maybe I'll just have it coming in from the edge like this. Maybe with nothing out here. Let's see how it goes. Okay, now on this one, okay, I might go with the hybrid ink right here for this one right here, because this one's going to get really dark. But here's what I'm thinking. I don't know how long it's going to take for this one to dry. So I think I'm going to add in my shadow work in here because I'm going to be adding it in here. I don't want to be doing that over like a wet impression of something. Okay. So let's save that foreground imagery for after, you know, whatever additional work I'm going to, blending I'm going to be doing in here. Yes, Bonnie, it's glossy paper. That I used a white. Yeah, okay, Patty, you're the one that did that. Yeah. Is the ink clear? How much does it take to see the effect? That's what I want to know too. We got to find out how to use things like I don't know, kind of interesting inks on I don't maybe to be effective. I'm trying to think if they'd be effective on something that's already a kind of a loud paper or something like that. You know, is there a way to apply some of these holographic types of things to holographic cardstocks, or is that kind of would it just get swallowed up in the visuals of the surface, you know, where they would stand out better against something just, you know, plain and more muted, you know, subdued. But I don't know. I'm pro bling these days, so I want to, you know, try to kind of explore the extremes or something like that, you know, with these different types of, you know, kind of loud surfaces and mediums, you know, attention-getting stuff. Okay, so I'm adding in this, see this right here? How that's kind of really anchoring down this scene a little bit. See how this is kind of floating out here, but see how this little bit of an extra tone. So you establish your shadow work in a color that's as dark or darker than the ink that you stamped it out in usually. Okay, now you can build it up through, you know, if it was really light down here, then I would blend in some darker blues first, but this is, you know, this was as dark as it was going to get out here. So I have to go straight to black right here. Now I'm not going to add any shadow work in here. It's just a really light area. But that area in there will probably get like white pigment ink or something like that. But you see this, how it's really starting to anchor that scene down just with a little tapping like this of this ink right here. So I'm moving it right here. Don't just tap and stay like, don't just go like this, okay? And not move, because you'll just get a big blob of like solid ink right here. So what I'm doing is I'm doing this, and I'm kind of moving it around out here. So it's kind of starts in one area like this, but then you transition it out. Now that looks a little bit harsh right there, but black over this darker blue, it doesn't, you know, it blends in pretty well. So I'm kind of starting right here, and then as it's getting drier on here, I'm moving out into those lighter areas because, you know, at its wettest point, it's going to leave its strongest impression, or with more tapping, you know, you're building it up a little bit more. But then you kind of blend it like this, okay? Just, it's the same thing, you know, where we're going from dark to light out here, wet to dry. It's just the same thing, except you're not going as far. I'm getting a little, maybe I need to be careful around here because that lighter area went right in here. But see this area like this, I can go like this, and I can go down like into the center of this applied swatch or streak or whatever you call it, like that. See that right there? And see this, here's a big one like this right here. So I don't want to take the black all the way to that and like a solid, but what you do is you take it like this. And so you're just starting in this one little area like this. Here, this one's a huge one, so I'll just streak it like this too. Okay, so see that right there? You can see the difference between like right here and right over here, right? Yeah, here, that worked out pretty good here. I didn't know if the paper was kind of dry on me, but I guess it's like the time of year this ink isn't drying like really fast, or faster than it would, you know, in a warmer, more arid time of year. So I'm able to kind of do this light, you know, type of application really easily like this. And it just looks like that. You're doing it with the kind of a drier applicator like that, okay? And that's the way you can get these really smooth transitions still. All right, so let's do this from the opposite side here. See, so I even kind of transition this a little bit. I'm making this a little bit darker out here, and it's a little bit lighter on the interior like that, okay? Now this one right here, the lighting is going right to about right here, so let's just kind of add a little bit of shading right in here. Just use a really light touch, but just get it in repetition, and then you won't have, you know, you won't run into anything like that, like right in here, okay? You also kind of, you know, if you haven't done this too much before, you got to get a feel of kind of applying kind of wet onto dry, and then it changes. Now I'm applying kind of wet onto damp, you know, from the beginning of this scene. Glad you're enjoying it, Jeannie. Always great to have you. Jeannie, at this point in time, you'd be applying a lot of that paint, huh? And more of those textural. Jeannie, are you using gray ink on your monochromatics, or do you just go with black and just use lighter applications of the black to achieve those, you know, the medium, you know, the grayscale area in your scenes? Buddy, I live in Oklahoma City more with my family. Ah. Was there I'm trying to think. I flew into Oklahoma City. Where was, and Bear Makes 3. There was a store. I flew into Oklahoma City, and there was a store that carried and taught Stampscapes, but I taught out there one time. A fun trip. Yeah, I can't wait to get those. Okay, so an update for those that know that the new stamps will be out very soon. My rubber guy got the plates in today, and I don't know. He probably didn't get my order for them out, I should say, today, because he has to make the molds for them too. And I think he got those plates from the engraver around 1:30, I think it said on the tracking. So he would have had to get over to, I think, UPS by like 5 in order to ship that. So I doubt if he was able to get that out. But he might have, I don't know. If you got it out via UPS, unless they're running slower right now, this black is really helping, huh? If you send it out UPS, I might get it tomorrow. But do you see how this black is really bringing everything together like that now? Look at that deep saturation right there. And again, okay, so this was the different blues right here, and you can see the blue right here, you know, just applied directly on top of white cardstock. I was just telling people earlier that if you go through these transitioning, you know, base layer tones like this, and if those are underneath the top layers of the darker colors, it just looks so much richer and deeper that way. Again, these are transparent colors, so the colors underneath are always going to affect what we see here on the surface, because we're looking through all those layers in there. So it gives you that nice, deep, layered, saturated look, okay? So, you know, that being said, you know, the most important colors in terms of application are those lighter colors, in my opinion. Because when you get these darker tones, like this black, and that's the darkest one, see, the black is going like from here to here. So it's really kind of perimeter oriented. Now I'm applying it strategically in some areas, you know, around these shadow areas, like at the base of these rocks in here. But you really don't do a lot of, you know, tone and color application when you get into your darker tones. And then when you streak across there, they're not getting absorbed as much, so you don't use as much ink. So it goes, you know, now this one's a pretty dark range of tones. We go from something really light to really dark in here, like the, you know, right in here, and then black on the outside. And again, this is an extreme version of this, because we're working on a full page piece of, you know, cardstock here. I guess it's more extreme when we go like 11 by 17, which isn't out of the question anymore. Yeah, now that we started working on like sizes as large as that. Yeah. Jeannie has a couple of my large pieces. Okay, so anyway, there we go like that. All right. Let's go with the foreground now. What's going through my head as I say that is, am I done with everything? Because I don't want to have to go back and add tone, like I said, over that hybrid ink right here, especially in these kind of wetter areas like this. Yeah, happy birthday to Bonnie. Early birthday. Greetings there. And I brought out my pens too. I thought I might be doing like some little bit of like color additions here, like in the, you know, like the rocks or something like that. But this area in here got pretty filled in with color. Although if you want to, I mean, like say if there was something kind of rough, like I don't like that, how it just transitions like that. You can come in with your alcohol inks and kind of just spread it out a little bit like this. You know, you can blend it in. You know, because alcohol inks are transparent again, and alcohol over the top of dye will apply just fine, okay? You can use your blender pen or something like that. You can work through your tones like this. See this right here? And I mean, unless there's like a really big buildup of ink and your ink is still a little bit wet, you know, the alcohol ink shouldn't smear anything or blend anything out. Sometimes it does because there's a little bit of residual, like residue, built up and dried on the surface. But dye-based inks, again, work by staining, so they're getting absorbed in there. And then these are water-based, and these ones are alcohol-based. So look at my finger. Those pumice sponges take that ink right off, by the way, if you need to, if you're doing this type of thing and you get your fingers look like this. Okay, so let's go in with our, that being said, I wonder if, I'm gonna add a little bit of temperature here right now with like a really pale tan color. I'm gonna go with the lightest colors that I have here. I don't even know what color this is right here. Pale yellow. It has some black on there. It looks like staining from something that I did before. But let me add a little bit of this temperature right here onto this moon. Let's add some of that reflection of it. I don't know, can you see that right there? Is that showing up on your screens? If you're like watching on like a phone, it might not show, but see this little bit of like tinge of warmth here? And I'm adding it into areas where I've retained a little bit of that white of the paper. I'm gonna do this a little bit streaky. I'm not gonna color in that full moon. I'm just kind of streaking it in like this. Kind of in the spirit of all the streakiness. I'm laughing as I'm thinking of it. That sounds kind of crazy. If you remember like in that, whatever, in the 70s or, you know, at all those different sporting events, there was someone like, you know, I don't know, whatever streaking was in as far as like a gag thing. Okay, so anyways, there's a little bit more temperature than that. That looks pretty good. Here, let me use a little bit of this one too. Here's a little bit of green. And see, it's a really pale green like that. I'm going to add a little bit more temperature to this moon. It's a little, like I said, it was a little bit too stark, so let's add a little of this in there. Now, I don't want to go too extreme because I think it'll stand out too much. But here's that analogous color type of addition in here. I think it's glowing a little bit more now, okay? And it's a little bit more atmospheric without, you know, without it being so stark, kind of light like that. It's a little bit moodier in terms of the lighting. And I'm playing it really safe because I'm going with something that's a really, really pale version of this color. I can go in here and you can't see anything at all, really, or almost. Okay. I don't want to take everything out because I want to retain a little bit of that white of the paper, so I can add in some white pigment ink and add a little bit more atmospherics to it. It's the basics here, but it's the extreme basics here, Teresa. Let's see. Okay, I think that is it with that. Let's go with the foreground here. All right. I think I was thinking about adding in kind of this rock in here. Let's do that. I'm wondering if I should go... I was going to go with the boulders with lichen. I can't find it though. So let's go with the ledge. But the ledge I'll just color in though, okay? So it's already dark down here, but I think we'll be able to see some of this right here. Like that. And then I'll mask it off for that Lakeside Cove large imagery down there. And I'm doing this because I might put someone like overlooking this entire scenario right on this ledge right here. Usually, I don't know, the lady writer probably, but or like a deer or something like that. Okay. So, okay, what's going through my mind is that should I go with the Marvy, the dye-based black, or should I go with the hybrid? Let's go with this one. think I just changed my mind on that larger lakeside cove. I might do some trees in front of this ledge here, looking out into the scene. You got to listen to the your cards and just kind of go in the direction that they seem to want to go in. Even if you had kind of preconceived notions on kind of a general composition or color scheme or lighting scheme or anything like that, things change, a lot. And I don't know if they change a lot, but they usually change to some extent, I should say. Sometimes it's a lot. And my suggestion is always just to kind of go with it. Rather than, it could be just in the name of, something, you think something will look better, okay? Sometimes it's not just, sometimes it's like, well, that's the way that this is going to work, And in this case, I think it'll just look better. Okay, so what I was going to do is I was going to put that other lakeside cove behind this ledge, like right in here. But I think it'll be better if I just kind of frame, if someone's going to be stamped right down here, a person or deer or something like that, I think it'd be better if they were kind of framed off from the foreground. Okay, so overlap the ledge, by the way, I have always considered this my best blending stamp, in terms of, how it's used and how it can blend in with a scenario. So when you're blending your stamps, if you haven't seen this before, I'm just using this scrap paper like this. You're blending side to side like that, okay? But you can also blend top to bottom, so you see how this blends in with that now. Okay. Go like that. And it's like really blended in. All right. I have that swatch of blue up there, but I'm just showing you as an example. Okay, so anyway, we have that. Now let's anchor this down a little bit more with some shadow work. Okay. You don't have to do this on this ledge here because it's already kind of in darkness right here, but I think this kind of, it gives a little bit more visual weight having some of this additional tone laid in here, okay? Okay, like so. Okay, now this is what I was talking about. I think I'll put this, or just some other trees flanking this. Maybe not this one right here. Because our pines and rocks will be taller, and then I have this mounted up because I knew I would use this one. Oh, there's the larger Art Foamies pines and rocks though too. All right, let me see right here. God, would that be crazy? This one's huge. Look how big this is. This is the spruce. Do I want to go with something that heavy? It would go right up there like that. That's big. I think we should. All right. So I've been experimenting around with this hybrid ink, and I really like how dark and solid it is. And it's perfect with the foamy stamps. Okay, but let's add in some additional little rock textures before I do that with the dye-based inks. Again, it's kind of like a process of working like thin to thick, if you've ever heard of that. They do that with like a lot of oil painting, things like that. You do the washes first, then you get, you know, thicker and thicker with the brush strokes or whatever. You can do palette knife applications of, you know, paint or something like that. But it's that thin to thick concept here. Okay, so I'm going to my thinner inks first. And then we'll get into the hybrid ink and then the white pigment ink applications. Okay, so I'm just adding in some of these additional rocks around my land masses. And this, you know, this gets a little bit repetitive down here in terms of these streaky kind of things. So if you just add in, you know, something like this, I don't know, it represents kind of shallower areas in this body of water. But it just, even if it doesn't represent that, it just, from a textural standpoint, it just kind of looks richer, having that additional texture. And you can use like the water pattern small or something like that in there too if you want to add in, you know, a little bit more movement to your water's surface and the water ripples. I want this one to be like real glassy looking though, and like super calm. All right, so anyways, there's some rocks down there like that. Okay, I added some darker ones in the darker areas, and some of these little areas in here, it's like the third or fourth impression like that or something like that. Bonnie, you got the 4-inch binder, huh? That's like, that's just that was 4 months ago, Bonnie. That's, you're getting like 1 inch of stamps. That's 1 inch of stamps a month. Okay, so this is the thick right here. These inks aren't like pigment inks, but they're thicker. But I think it'll give me a really deep, dark impression. Do I need to go with the white pigment ink first? Let's just do this one. Like I said, with the foamies, I have a really hard time kind of figuring out if they're inked up because it's black foam here, which is a good idea because otherwise they would look so stained if it was like they were using like white foam. All right, let me be... I'm going to be a little bit safe here. I'm going to re-ink this with their re-inker ink. Boy, that is really a lot thinner than I thought it would be. That looks like dye-based ink practically. That is the right ink, right? This is Total Eclipse Black, and that's what this Total Eclipse Black says right here. Tint and hue, yeah. Okay. Like this, and I don't want to cover up my area for that little, you know, figure that goes in there. Will probably go in there. Thanks for joining in, Patty. Hope you have a great rest of evening and weekend, Christmas. We'll see everyone, you know, on the Christmas Day Marathon live stream. Just joking. Ow, that stamped out kind of light there, didn't it? Like that. Maybe the hybrid ink isn't as dark as I thought it would be on top of all these inks. Or maybe I didn't hold it down long enough. I don't know. It doesn't look bad though. You know, like that. It's a little bit lighter, so let me position the... Now this ink is like some of the darkest ink on, you know, things like that wood grain paper and you know, the vintage paper. So that really surprises me. But you got to experiment around sometime. So let me do this in the Marvy black next to it. Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe I didn't hold it down long enough, you know, to allow it to transfer. I was going to add this in anyway, so let's see. Let's do it in just traditional dye ink right next to it. I'm overlapping a little bit into the spruce hybrid. Oh, the small reeds, yeah. I've been using the small reeds a lot. You know, when I started using the small reeds more is when I started doing the reflection cards, because I always had like reeds large in the foreground. But then on the other side of that body of water in my reflection cards, that was like the perfect place for the smaller reeds to give, you know, to push kind of perspective in there a little bit more. So I started using large reeds like a lot more over this last maybe even year. And I like it too. I mean, I'd probably use it more anyway with the larger reeds just in the foreground area just to push it. But look at that right there. That actually looks pretty good that it's lighter, doesn't it? Because it creates depth between this one and that one like that. All right, so that looks pretty good. Now watch me. I'm going to try to go for that again on the other side right here. But it's not going to do it because it's going to stamp out like really dark. That's what always happens, right? Let me see. Here's a different tree. Here's the pine. Let's do that. Let's go with this one right here. I'll experiment with this a little bit too. I'll hold it down a little bit longer. I think I'm going to do 2 of these pines on this side. I'm going with these 3 different ones. I mean, I didn't plan this out, but I was thinking this is really symmetrical up here. We have Lakeside Cove, Lakeside Cove, Lakeside Cove, and there's 4 Lakeside Coves right here. And then I have Lakeside Reflection, you know, Lakeside Reflection large, Lakeside Reflection large. So up here, I don't want to do the same thing on the foreground where it's, you know, the same stamp right over here and the same stamp over there. If I don't have to, okay, we could, but I think this is one of those little tweaks that'll kind of help it out. Okay, that stamped out a lot dark, like super dark right there. So on this one right here, I just didn't hold it down long enough. You know, because again, I'm stamping kind of damp into damp or wet into damp. So just hold it down longer, and that gave me a really dark impression. I don't know if it's darker than the Marvy one though. You know, it's about the same, I guess. Okay, so let's do this right here to talk about, you know, kind of breaking up the, you know, the repetition and whatever symmetry a little bit. Let's go for one of these pines on the other side of this rock cliff. Okay, let's see. Let me try to go for a quick impression. Let me see if it stamps out lighter. Now they're all going to be dark. Yeah, it's pretty dark right there. I guess because right in here, though, there wasn't as much ink as right over here in that really damp area. Okay, let's see. Let's go. All right, now I want this one to stamp out fairly dark. Now watch, this one's going to stamp at the, the lightest of all. If it does, no big deal, but, just in general, it's a little bit lighter in here and darker over here. Bonnie has a lot of dyes. Remember those dyes that they used to have in stores where you'd go into a store and they had a catalog of, I forgot that machine. It wasn't something where you'd have it at home. And then you would go in and you would, you pay a certain amount to use certain dyes in there. And they had that big catalog of those papers in there. You can't really see this one right here in the bottom right-hand corner very much, but it kind of frames it off a little bit more for that depth. Okay. All right. Let me see. No, I didn't think I'd have to. Oh, here we go. I was going to say, this is the one that I want right in here. The Lady Rider right here. I think this is the perfect setting for them right here, down at the base here. So what ink do I stamp them out in? Do I stamp them out in the hybrid? Or do I stamp them out in the Marvy black? I guess it doesn't matter too much. The hybrid ink might look a little bit more dimensional when it dries. I'm not sure. Or I'm not sure if it'll make any difference at all. Let me just go for the Marvy right here, because it's a thinner ink, so it should dry faster, I would guess. If you're going to drop a stamp during this process, don't make it the last focal point stamp that you're stamping. That does occur to me when I'm doing these live streams sometimes. It's like I'm getting, to the smallest little element or something like that. That's going to be like the total focal point of a scene. All right. So there we go. It's like a little stage for our, little figurine in there, huh? Oh, lily grass. What did Candy say with the lily grass? Is with the small reeds. Oh, you mean the lily grass, not the small reeds. I need to pull out that lily grass. That would be a good one in a lot of the pieces that I'm doing, especially in little pond areas. Okay, so let's go in. So I have, okay, so these are this is my color scheme right here, right? It's blues. This is like the Caribbean blue right here. I use some of that green in there too. And then white, we have that white element right up here. So with that same color scheme, I'm just going to go in here and develop my kind of highlights a little bit more. I don't think I need to do too much on this one because I've muted out a lot of the white, where it's just in some of the, the smallest of areas in those areas where I've retained a lighter area. Okay, so I'm not going to have things like shimmering quite so extreme because, these little dots will stand out too much. But I'll keep it a little bit more muted for now, and I'll see how it goes, but we can do that with the use of, darker tones for those highlights. Okay, so in other words, in here, see this little area in the background like that? If I used white, that would really stand out, but it's a little bit more of a muted highlight here with the darker paint right here. I'll add in some white too, but I'm just starting darker on here now. So see, now I'm going into my opaques right here. So I've used transparencies in here and going from light to dark, but now I'm using opaque media, pigment inks, paint pens like this. So with this, I go from dark to light so that the lightest things are kind of the closest things to us. And I'll show you what I mean by that here. Okay, now this gets really dark out here. Okay, so I'm not going to add in too many highlights right in here, but you see these little highlights on some of these rocks in here? That might even be a little bit too light in there, but it's a little bit more muted of a... I need to be careful that I don't put my hand in that right there because I can see it's real wet. But see these little highlights like this? They do make things look a little bit more rounded and dimensional. Okay, so see that right there? You can see that rock right in here. And do you see where I put those little highlights on some of these trees? Let's do it on this one here too. Now I can go with that even darker blue, but let's just stick with this one. You'll be able to see it on camera, I think, a little bit easier. Okay, so see that right there? You can see that those little highlights on the side of the trees facing our moon. Same thing right in here. And you can see the difference between like these trees over here and like say this one right here without any of those highlights. I mean, it looks okay, but if you just do a little, this is like, I don't know, let's see, it's like 4 or 5 little dots like that. It just pulls it out from the background a little bit more and makes it a little bit more dimensional. Okay, so see this right here? And right there. Okay, and let's get this one. So on this one right here, it's a little bit more, the illumination is more coming from the right kind of top, so I'll put some of these little highlights on, you know, kind of the top of the trees, but a little bit more predominantly right side illuminated, just to reiterate that lighting direction. Okay. I'll see, you know, I mean, this blue right here, you know, over the something that's, you know, quite a bit lighter will look like a dark blue, but over the area that's darker than it, it looks light. So again, you're kind of just playing contrasts. Okay, so you can see that rock right in there and those trees. I can go a little, like I said, I'm just going with the blue for right now, just kind of playing it safe. And then I'll go with the, you know, I'll try the lighter tones right in here. Look at this, I put my hand, I think, right into one of these trees over here, but it's all completely dark over there, so you can't really see a smudge. Okay, let me put some of this on this tree. And it pulls it out from the distance. I'm putting more than I thought I might, but I like the look, and it's really subdued with this blue. It's kind of, it's almost like a medium blue. I mean, it's a little bit lighter, but... Okay, so you see that right in here, or can you see it? I don't know if you can see that. Those highlights on this tree, but you can see them right here a little bit. I mean, it's real subtle. This tree right here on the side is really wet still. It'll dry though, but it should look really nice and dimensional. Okay, so say there's little highlights on that tree right there. So it kind of brings it out from the background. Sorry about the glare here, like that. Okay, let me put a few little highlights down in this water. I'm thinking about the Dr. Martens, just getting a little bit of textural contrast, and I don't know, it wouldn't really represent anything like realistic or anything like that, but it might just be kind of nice to have a little bit of a different texture and overlay over that. But let's see how it looks here. Okay. That, let's go on with the white. Let's just jump to the white here. Yeah, the hybrid will dry on the cardstock. I don't know about just straight oil-based pigment inks, okay? Ellison Dye Machine. Yeah. Is that what it was? They use it at schools too, huh? Hello, Beverly. Yeah, it's been a while. So I haven't done like a glossy cardstock in a while. I don't think with the dye-based inks. I mean, when I say a while, for all I know, I did one like 2 months ago or so, or a month ago or something like that, but it feels like forever. So I just wanted to go big with this, with the full page. I figured, I haven't done like a, just traditional dye-based on glossy, or it doesn't have to be the glossy. It just is, on any kind of cardstock. So I thought, let's do a large one. I always like this composition too, with the, the Lakeside Cove or Lakeside Reflection type of thing. And I like it in these blue tones like that. I like that deep blue color scheme. So I figured, let's make it in that color scheme again. I always feel this composition looks really kind of moody and real atmospheric. Okay, so I'm just kind of adding little touches here with this white because the white will stand out quite a bit. So little tiny accents here. I do a lot more of it in much lighter compositions, but you see that on those little trees and things like that, how it really kind of brings objects forward and pushes them back a little bit from a depth perspective, perspective. But from a textural perspective, having these little touches like this on objects that are middle distance, far, close, it separates them distance-wise visually, but it unifies them from a textural standpoint. So you get kind of, you benefit from it in multiple ways. It's like in design or something like that. They talk about kind of repeated types of elements, colors, textures, patterns or something like that, to bring continuity to something. Well, that's what this is doing. You're just adding like similar things and, different whatever. I mean, this is all two-dimensional here, but it represents something much deeper, in terms of space. Okay, so let's see this tree right here. It's kind of bringing it out a little bit more. Kind of makes the piece kind of shimmer a little bit too. It brings these little textures like this. It can represent highlighting, but oftentimes they're like stars in a sky or snowfall or something like that. It just brings everything out a little bit more in terms of just having a richer surface, because it's a different texture, I guess, on there. And it's lighting. It's something that's light, potentially in dark. Okay, so see that right down those trees. So that's what it looks like. It looks like, sometimes it looks a little bit too much, but, we look at these pieces like from arm's distance for the most part. We're not looking at it, with our head right here onto that little area where it might look, those little dots might look kind of strange. But when you look at it at arm's distance, it just kind of creates a little bit of separation. Like I said, the, those textural variations. Jeannie's going to do this one, huh? Gene, you're gonna have like a lot more like movement and expression in yours, though. You can have like a Genie's will have like a windswept area down here, with like a different Dr. Martin's painted textures and all that type of thing. Okay, so that is that. Now, let's get to the fun part here of this scene. I'm joking, but this part is a lot of fun right here, and that's adding in. So these are crisp little textures, with these highlights in here. I love doing those little kind of detailed areas like that, but I love these kind of sweeping, kind of textural and lighting changes that happen really quickly with the use of white pigment ink applied over the top of various areas. Okay, so in here, I think that the silhouette of these trees right in here would have looked a little bit better had I stamped out this cloud underneath my moon lighter. Okay, I should have wiped off more ink. Like I said, I haven't done this like composition in a while, so I wasn't thinking that. Or I forgot about it, okay? All right, so cotton ball, because that's going to be, for me, it's like the softest applicator around, and I want real soft applications of this. Okay, but we don't want to be working with that frayed type of cotton ball like that, so what you do is you smash it down, and then you get a nice smooth surface like this. Okay, now my pad here, I always kind of point this out. A lot of people say, oh, I got that Brilliance pad, okay? Or they bought a brand new one, okay? And when they're dipping in here, they're really getting 10 times as much ink as I'm getting right now, because this is kind of a little bit medium dry, okay? So if you get one that's brand new, or you've just re-inked this or something like this, just tap a little bit lighter and then, do this, maybe tap it off a little bit before you go onto your pieces, okay? But I keep my C for cotton one kind of a little bit drier, unless I'm doing a big blocked out area on printable vinyl or something like that, then I re-ink it. But I keep it kind of drier, medium dry, so that when I'm doing this type of application, I can just go basically directly from this right on here, and it's not going to be any big deal because it's just giving me, a little bit of an application of it. So this is what it looks like when I'm applying it. See how lightly, applied that is? And then I can just build up more as needed, okay? Now this is on foil, so this doesn't dry on here. I can just wipe it right off. Okay, but that's what I'm going to do on here. I'm just kind of knocking some of these things down on here, just really little by little. Maybe I do need a little bit more re-inker on here, but okay, there's a wetter spot right there. But see this right here? And I can apply it in some areas. And if some areas were just stamped too dark, then I could just knock it back, or, just, if you can just decide later on, from Mr. Steve, it might not have been too dark, but then, you stamp out your other things around it, and it's like, oh, it's a little bit too dark, and just knock it back after the fact. And we can still do that these days with, pigment ink like this. Okay, no, so we're talking about, will the hybrid inks dry on here? And I said, they'll dry just fine, but sometimes like your color box or, your Hero Hues oil-based pigment inks, if you stamp an imagery in them, they might not dry because there's a big application of that ink in an impression, okay? But you can go, I'm just applying a really light application of this, so you can do, if you don't have Brilliance water-based fast-drying pigment ink, you can use your color boxes. I used them for years, okay, like this, because I'm just giving a real thin application of the ink, okay? So it could be your oil-based inks, and it'll dry on here fine. Okay, so I want this moon to kind of glow a little bit more. So see this hard edge right here? I'm just kind of making that, giving a little bit of that moonlit glow around here like this with the pigment ink, okay? So it gives it kind of a softer lighting to the scene like this. And getting a little bit of that glow. And let's put some of that pigment ink on some of these trees here in that same type of soft moonlight, okay? And I like this area down here. It's lighter right in here, so I'm going to put some of this kind of fog and mist type of effect right in this area, and we're just lightly dabbing it. I'm not trying to get it like instantly. I get it really kind of methodically, incrementally, okay? That way I have a lot of control over how much is applied. If you ever apply too much, you just wipe it off with a paper towel or cotton ball or whatever, and you just go again, because the ink's not going to dry real fast on here, okay? So there's plenty of time to really manipulate it. But you just don't want to go on there with a big slathering. It's a little bit harder to control that way. It's easier just to apply how much you want through repetition of this kind of tapping motion or whatever motion you need. All right, so see this kind of foggy look in the background like that. As this pigment dries too, it dries darker looking. So if you want to kind of get it to the point where it looks when it's been freshly applied, just do it through multiple layers. Let it dry a little bit or set up, and then apply more. Okay, I'm not going to do too much in here, but let's get some little variation right here. You see where I've retained a little bit of this lightness right here? Right over here it's dark, and I might be able to get a little bit on that water's edge right there, but it might be a little bit trickier because it is just so dark right here, where the white blends in with a lighter area naturally, okay? So let's get it like this. I need to be careful around here because some of this ink might still be really wet or a little bit damp. I can see that hybrid ink, especially this impression right here. I think this is completely dry, but see this right here down at this base right here? It kind of looks like it's capturing some of that light right here now, okay? And it just brings a softness into this area and just a little bit of a difference. Let's try it right here and let's see if I can get a little bit of it in there. I'm seeing if I can blend it in over this way too. I'm turning it upside down because I can see what I'm doing like this. If I'm doing it from this side, I can't really see it as much. Yeah, okay, that looks good right there. See that right there? It changed, you know, what we did was we expanded on the textural range. It was really crisp in here, but now it's soft plus crisp like that, okay? Let's add a little bit more down here. I like that, I like pulling that out here. Let's see if I can do a little bit more. I'm trying to do it really gracefully, if I can. Okay. All right. I think that is. So we have soft lighting right here with a white pigment ink on a cotton ball. And then you have crisp lighting here with the paint pen, okay? And it just kind of reiterates that lighting coming from here. A lot of times I put it at the base of like my objects like this, but I think this character right here is just too much in the foreground. I'm not going to put any like soft, you know, kind of fog or bank of fog right down here. And plus this is probably still drying right now a little bit, so I don't want to go over those areas right in here. So anyway, okay, so I might tweak this a little bit later. I need to wait for this to dry, and then I'll spray seal it too. But see right in here, I don't know if you can tell, but it's getting a little bit kind of mottled a little bit more. Sometimes when I allow this to dry and then I go back in and I go in with an additional like layer or two of ink, like maybe in here too, it'll kind of bump up the vibrancy. And then when you spray seal these with like a glossy spray, it really brings out the saturation of everything. And these top coats of ink that are over the top of maybe some brighter, lighter ones, that really becomes more apparent, and it really looks deep and saturated with the sealants, which I'd always recommend, especially in a technique like this where you can really benefit from those spray sealants. And I don't know, it can increase your kind of intensity and depth by, I don't know, 10-15%, I would say. I don't know, sometimes it's even more depending on the inks you've used. Some inks can dry really dull looking, okay? And you'll stamp something out and it looks really beautiful and saturated and deep right after you did it. And then it's like the next morning it's like, wait, what happened here? It looks like it dries to like a dull frosted look, okay? But it didn't fade out though. The colors are still there. There's just this kind of this coating over the top of it that the spray sealant should get rid of, okay? Now, I tend to think that it's probably a little bit better if you spray seal it, though, before it dries. I don't know. I don't know if it's in my imagination or if it's true, but I tend to think that the retention of that intensity is a little bit easier to keep than the spray sealing kind of, I don't know, whatever, revival or whatever, reveal of the frosted look, okay? I'm saying that mostly for things that I've spray sealed after like years of sitting around or something like that. Maybe if it's, the first few days, it doesn't matter or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, 8.5 by 11 glossy cardstock diabase inks. So yeah, it's like here. It's real kind of glary here. But I think that satiated my deep color, desire for a while on this piece right here. I still have a lot of fun doing these pieces like this. And like I said, it doesn't have to be monochromatic, okay? You can have like, I don't know, different color sky, different color water, different color land masses or something like that. But if you're doing those, I would just, you grab out, if you're going for this type of saturation, you just, you put together your color schemes in, that type of order. Pink, a little touch of pink in here would be cool too. I used to do that a lot with my blue tones color schemes. I just do like a little swatch of like pink in here or something like that. It doesn't look pink, it looks more violet or something like that. But then again, it's going into that analogous color and it'll give it a little bit more of that glow. I mean, I can still do that like right in here or something like that. Just a hint of like a different tone, where it's going with the blue tones and it's going to the greens up here, but you can have a little bit of a violet tinge or something like that in there, and that's pretty fun to do. Ever tried to use a bridge of wood so you can rest your hand? Oh, I haven't done that before, Beverly. I've heard of that, though, I think. If anything, what I do at times, I don't know, maybe it's that, but I'll just use a paper towel over my hand or something like that, so I can rest it on there and that doesn't smear the ink around like that. Hello, Verna. You're frosting cookies. What's your address, Verna? We're all coming over. What type of cookies did you make? Is it like Christmas cookies or something like that? Hello in Perth, Western Australia, in the WA. When I write that WA here, when I've shipped to Western Australia, WA postally here means Washington State. So I always think about that when I'm writing that WA for Western Australia, or inputting it, But then I'll, when we're shipping to, Canada, Australia, well, you put the Australia underneath the zip code line. Yeah, the glossy's fun, Candy. I haven't done, yeah, I think, okay, so my first, I don't know what, 25 years, it was like 98% of my scenes were on glossy cardstock. Just because I like the, we can do more muted types of color schemes, but if you want to get that saturation of tone, if you want that potential, it's through the glossy cardstocks. But I don't know. I've really come to like using a lot of the colored pencil types of things. But when I'm doing things like with colored pencils, if you notice, when I'm doing like a sky or area of grass or something like that, I'm still kind of sticking with my kind of traditional dye-based ink application conventions of working from light tones to darker tones. So I'll do the same thing with colored pencils on there. But the colored pencils, it's these aren't going to work on glossy cardstock. So it's the semi-gloss or the other types of printed papers that that I'll use with that media there. Can you use alcohol re-inkers to color like this? Bonnie, alcohol really dries fast. You can go for some types of alcohol layering, but the problem with alcohol over alcohol is that when you lay down alcohol, if I'm laying down a light color of alcohol, as you know, when you go over it with like a darker one, unless it's on matte cardstock, okay, where everything's getting absorbed, but if it's surface oriented, it's going to dissolve the alcohol underneath it and put it back into solution, where dye-based inks, we're just layering it one over the other like this. It's almost, some of it is mixing a little bit, I'm sure, but it's almost like one transparent overlay over another one like this, okay? And you're really kind of building it up like that. The alcohol, you'd be dissolving what's already been laid down. But that being said, okay, you can lay down alcohol inks if you want to go for like a really deep saturation where they're not blending, but you'd kind of spray seal each layer or every couple layers of alcohol with like a spray sealant. But the alcohol can put those sealants back into solution too. So, you'd be doing like a little bit of a different type of technique and look with that. Glad you like it, Beverly. Jen, glad you like it. It's time to go cook some dinner like this. You know what used to be embarrassing is after you get done where you're like demonstrating all day at a convention, and then I forgot, I didn't bring like a scouring pad or something like this, and you're going out, because you're out of town or something like this, and you're going out to eat like this. But then what I started doing is when I remembered, in my demo box when we were doing conventions all the time, I would take I'd take one of those pumice sponges, and this ink will come right off with one of those things like that. So anyway, yeah. Go to Art F. I think Teresa left a while back. Yeah, back to the basics here, Linda. It's fun, kind of fun doing the glossy cardstock again like this. And where I really love these glossy cardstocks again, it's when you spray seal it. Okay, so when you spray seal this too, the lighter areas of that pigment ink that's been laid down like that, you want to spray those areas very lightly, okay? Because it can put that, it can make those really light layers of white pigment ink just kind of disappear. So a lot of times what I do is I spray seal it to get the saturation of all the colors like this. And then I'll hit it a little bit again with some additional white pigment ink right over the top of that sealant, okay? And then I'll just very lightly hit it again with like a dusting of that spray sealant again, where it just locks down those, the pigment ink's just enough, and then you're good. So it's kind of like a sandwich layer of pigment ink in there. You can use spray sealants for that too. It can lock down layers. Okay, it's not just one of those things where you use it in the end and that's the final touch, which is what I'm doing like 80, I don't know, whatever, maybe 95% of the time. But sometimes I'll use spray sealants and workable fixatives to lock down layers for additional texturing, coloring, whatever over the top of it. So, yeah. Sugar cookies. Okay, I'm gonna give Verna's address over this. I'll type it into the the chat. And we're coming over for some of those fresh baked sugar cookies. That sounds really good. I can almost smell it here. Those cookies going. That's one of the best things, right? It's the visuals, the taste, but it's the smell of cookies permeating or just baking in general. So as West Aussies refer to WA as wait a while. That's funny. Australia was one of those places. That's one of the longest transit times from the U.S. So I got to hand it to everyone, in Australia, New Zealand, all of those more distant areas like that in terms of acquiring, some types of things, like glossy cardstock or something like that. I hope you can find that type of thing out there, Nicole. I don't know if you're one of those people that, I was trying to help out find a glossy cardstock. It used to be so easy to find out there with all the rubber stamp stores. They all carried it at the time, and they all knew where to source that type of thing, so they can carry it in their stores and things like that. But, for Western Australia, I think I've mentioned this in another live stream before, but the glossy cardstock, as far as I know, that was being used in Australia was out of Indonesia, and it was a really great glossy cardstock. It was probably one of those types of places where it's one of those production facilities where that's supplying a lot of like Asia, I'm guessing, like that. But it was really fantastic. I still have like 2 reams of it because my client used to bring me like a ream of it whenever she would come out to the U.S., which was a couple times a year. So, yeah. All right. Straight bleached. You use bleach to clean your fingers. Wow, Candy. That's pretty awesome. That's hard. That's pretty hardcore, Candy. I would try a one of those little pumice. It's not a pumice stone. I think it's like a pumice sponge or something like that. It's like softer, so it really it gets it off really instantly. I can't imagine the bleach would be too good for you if you're using it too often. Yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone. Hope you have a really fantastic weekend. I'll be getting, if anyone ordered those new stamps, I'll probably be getting it in. I'm guessing unless like I said, he shipped today and I could possibly get it tomorrow. It's probably going out tomorrow, in which case I would probably get it on Tuesday. So, yeah, orders for those new stamps will be going out on Wednesday, I would think. So I'm just glad my rubber guy's around. A lot of times he used to take off for 2 weeks around this time. So we were able to get in one last release for 2023 here. All right, so anyways, yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one. Thanks everyone for joining in. Scrubby soap. Borax used to be the soap that was in stores until everyone started using those little sponges like that. Then there'd always be one of those little things around the sink. That's when I started taking one around to me with the different workshops and things like that. Hope. Oh, okay. You got it. Yeah. You're set, Nicole. A whole box. Yeah. That's the way to do it still, you know. Go in with a friend on those harder to acquire types of supplies like that. And I hope you guys can get, you know, like semi-gloss cardstocks too. Those are really fun to use because you get a little bit of the best of both worlds. You get the somewhat of the, you know, similar ink retention, surface ink retention for, you know, the deepest of saturations, but the paper, the satiny kind of dull types of finishes that's still coated, you can still use things like colored pencils on them. And it kind of works, you know, in a similar way to matte, but just a little bit more coated like that. So anyway. All right, folks. Thanks again for joining in. Hope you liked the, I don't know, this isn't a card, but the scene. And if you ever do any of these types of layered saturations, if you run into any issues, just let me know. But it's mostly just going back to those lightest coats on here and laying down enough of it. And then remember, it could dry, yeah, not really on a quarter page card, but sometimes. Just go back to your lighter tones and lay more of those down, and then, you know, just build it up from the lighter tones again. So sometimes you go light to dark, and then you go back to some lighter tones like that to blend things in a little bit more smoothly if need be. All right. And the use of re-inkers makes it so much easier. All right, folks.